This is the Northern...
Okay. Members, can I remind you that this meeting will be recorded, and ask you to note that mobile phones should be switched off as they interfere with the recording. Tablet device should be switched to mute. Can I remind members, just make sure my own's off, can I remind members to declare their interests appropriate throughout the meeting. Can I advise members that there will be a close briefing with TB Strategic Partnership Group at approximately 3 p.m. The meeting will then revert back to open session for the remainder of the agenda items. We have 2 oral briefings to get through by 3 p.m, so can I remind members of this? Can I declare the meeting open to the public? Agenda item 1, any apologies? We have one from Joe Byrne. Are there any other apologies? Okay. And item 2, chairperson's business. Can I advise members that I was speaking in a private members' motion? Will be speaking this afternoon, and due to that absence of the deputy chair, I will require someone to chair the meeting, probably from about 3:34 p.m. on, if we haven't finished at that stage. Can I take a nomination for vice chairperson at this stage?
I propose Joanne.
Okay. Need a second or do it?
No.
No, that's okay.
You
okay.
Yep. What time from 3:30?
Well, we're not be near 4.
We'll be here for the McCreesh Park and whatever time it starts. No problem. To go.
Can I advise members that due to a change in broadcasting services, there is no longer a facility to televise additional meetings on Monday or Tuesday. However, the audio facility will remain for those days. There should be no impact on broadcasting of our committee meetings each Tuesday, but additional meetings outside their normal schedule are unlikely to be broadcast. I advise members that the Health and Safety Executive intends to issue invitations to both the EDI and ARD committees to the launch of the Farm Safety Partnership New TV advert. This will take place Wednesday, the 11th of March, from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Streamville Open Farm, Dundalland. I ask that members note the date in their diaries and note that the formal invitations will issue in due course.
I think they issued it yesterday.
Okay. Can I remind members that the informal meeting with EU Commissioner Phil Hogan will take place on Friday the 27th of March 2015 from 10:15 to 11:15 in room 30. We will discuss the finer details of this arrangement later in the meeting. I advise members that I and Deputy Chairperson have requested a meeting with the Minister to discuss the AFB budget. I will advise members of the outcome of the meeting in due course.
So when was the winner of that, Chair?
The meeting with the Minister hasn't finalised. Not finalised yet, that meeting.
This is on the AFB?
Yes.
All right, so, okay.
Okay.
It's Chair and Deputy Chair.
Chair and Deputy Chair with me, as I requested a meeting. Agenda item 3, minutes of the meeting 17th of February 2015. Confirm members to draft minutes of the meeting held on 17th of February 2015 at pages 6 to 9. Are members content that the draft minutes are accurate? Okay, so I will sign. And item 4, monitorising. And refer members to monitorising at pages 14 to 40. For members content action, the monitorising is suggested on the index sheet at pages 12 to 13. Okay. And item 5, oral briefing, Darren Shanus's fees uplift. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 42 to 44 and papers from the department at pages 45 to 80. Can I welcome Sandra Dunbar, grade 6, Stanley McDowell, grade 5, Darren Griffiths, grade 6, and Dennis Savage, grade 7. You are all very welcome to the committee, and can I ask you to take up to 10 minutes to give your presentation? Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss this legislation with you today. I'm Dennis Savage, the head of DARD's Animal Disease Control Policy Branch. I'm accompanied today by Sandra Dunbar, DARD's Senior Principal Veterinary Officer with responsibility for zoonotic diseases, by Stanley McDowell, the Director of Veterinary Sciences at AFBI, and by Darren Griffiths from the AFBI Finance team. I hope that my colleagues and I will be able to address any questions you may have. As you are aware from the papers that have been provided, EU Regulation 2160 of 2003 requires all Member States to implement National Control Programmes, or NCPs, in the poultry sector. These apply across the UK, and there are also similar official controls carried out in the Republic of Ireland. The objective of the National Control Programmes is to safeguard and improve public health through surveillance, to decrease the prevalence of Salmonella strains that have a significance to public health. These are Salmonella enteriditis and Salmonella typhimuriae. In carrying out this surveillance for Salmonella, the Department is operating within the framework of the EU regulation I have referred to and our own existing domestic legislation, specifically the Control of Salmonella in Poultry Scheme Order, Northern Ireland 2008, the Control of Salmonella in Broiler Flocks Scheme Order, Northern Ireland 2009, and the Control of Salmonella in Turkey Flocks Scheme Order, Northern Ireland 2010. These statutory rules implement the NCPs for breeding, laying, broiler and turkey flocks. Whilst membership of the schemes is optional, it is a prerequisite for trading. It is government policy to recover the full cost of services provided under schemes like these. In accordance with this, the Zoonosis Fees Regulations Northern Ireland 2011 came into effect on the 1st of April 2011 and enabled the Department to recover the costs associated with the schemes. This reflects a 1987 policy agreement with the Department of Finance and Personnel, and indeed the Zoonosis Fees Regulations Northern Ireland 2011 and subsequent amendments are made jointly by DARD and the Department of Finance and Personnel. The industry is aware of the charging requirement, as it has been in place since 2011 and has had the opportunity to feed into public consultation every year. This year, only 3 responses were received to our consultation, which was targeted at the poultry industry and issued to 59 recipients. We are now proposing to make the Zoonosis Fees Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2015 in order to amend the current legislation so that the fees for 2015-16 will reflect the full cost to the Department for carrying out the sampling and testing that is required. The only alternative would be for the Department not to recover full costs, which would mean the public purse needing a shortfall. This, however, would be contrary to the DFP policy advice. Fee charged to operators is made up of 2 components: the cost incurred by the Department staff when carrying out the sampling, and the fee charged by the Agri-Food and Biosciences Institute, AFBI, for the testing of the sample. When a flock has been sampled, DARD staff record details of the flock owner and the time spent carrying out the sampling. This is signed by the flock owner and used to calculate the sampling component of the fee payable. There is no increase this year in this part of the proposed fees. The laboratory testing component of the proposed fees for 2015-16 has been calculated according to AFBI's strategic cost model. This is a sophisticated costing methodology which is used to apportion costs and which takes account of clearly defined categories such as staff costs, programme costs, overheads and platform costs. DARD uses AFBI for the testing of official samples taken under the National Control Programmes, since EU regulations require the use of a designated National Reference Laboratory, or NRL, for the analysis and testing of zoonosis and zoonotic agents. AFBI has this NRL designation, and all confirmatory tests must be carried out there, though other tests may be carried out elsewhere. Whilst all of the fees have increased, only the optional tests for egg-laying flocks have increased by large amounts. These tests are not compulsory and are only carried out at the operator's request, following a positive test result that prevents eggs entering the food chain unless they've been heat-treated. Even taking account of the proposed increases, the majority of the proposed fees for 2015 will remain lower even than the current DEFRA fees, with only 3 of the optional tests being more expensive. I believe a comparison of the DARD and DEFRA fees was provided to members in advance of the meeting. The Department conducted a 6-week consultation on the proposed new fees. As I've already mentioned, there were only 3 responses received. 2 of these expressed concern at the proposed increases. We intend to write to each of the respondents individually, advising them of DARD's obligation under the 1987 policy agreement with DFP to recover the full costs of these services, and the EU requirement to use the designated National Reference Laboratory, i.e. AFBI, testing and for the analysis and testing. I believe that the small number of responses to the consultation indicates a level of acceptance within the industry and an understanding that in today's financial climate the Department could not subsidise this testing from the public purse. My colleagues and I are happy to address any concerns or questions members may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Certainly we look at the increases and they're quite hefty, but one in particular, they're all very hefty indeed, but one in particular, testing of 4,000 eggs, I see now is increased by almost 120%. Can you give an explanation for that?
Yes, I can. As I explained in the presentation, there are two components to the testing fees. The first component is the DARD time, which is the sampling and the collection of the samples. So that's the DARD time. That component in the fees is not increasing this year at all. The other component is to cover the testing by AFBI, and that's the part of it that is showing the increase. Now, all the AFBI costs for the coming year have been calculated, as I said in the presentation, in accordance with their strategic cost model. And I have with me today a member of the AFBI finance team who can tell you a bit more about the strategic cost model. So I think maybe that's what you need to do.
Effectively, up until the current year, AFBI used a universal overhead rate which applied equally across all branches. That was recognised as not being the perfect system to apply overheads because branches differ significantly in terms of the corporate resources they use. So the introduction of the strategic cost model was tried to more specifically apply overheads to branches, and the increases that you see in terms of the tests and the differences in the increases reflect the branch specific overheads that now apply. Do you want to add to that, Darren?
No, I think only really to state that the new methodology complies with the principle of full economic costing, which is required of AFBI by managing public money in Northern Ireland. So, as Stanley alludes to, this is a much more accurate way of expressing the costs of the activities that we deliver across our customer base.
Yeah. Well, the testing of the 4,000 eggs, like it was £3,255 in 2014-15, up to 7,128, which is a massive increase. There's increases and increases, but you must accept that is a massive increase.
I do accept it as a very large increase, but as my colleagues have said, this is possibly a more accurate way of calculating the costs. And the other point I would make about that particular one is that that is an optional test. It will only be carried out if the producer requests us to carry it out. It's not a compulsory test.
Some of the industry bodies that replied to the consultation were unhappy with their increased costs, said they'll try and get testing done elsewhere. I'm told that's not possible. Is that right? Or is there options for them to get testing done elsewhere?
The confirmatory the official confirmatory samples have to be carried out at AFBI because it is designated as the National Reference Laboratory. But the majority of the testing that goes on, the operators can get tested elsewhere.
It's possible then. Okay.
Not for the official confirmatory samples, though.
So what you're saying, this is full cost recovery, is that what?
Yes, of the department's time in lifting the sample and AFBI's time in testing the sample.
So in previous years it wasn't full cost recovery?
Well, the previous costs were set on the basis of the best information that we had at the time, and it was done on full cost recovery. But as colleagues have explained, this strategic cost model is a more accurate way of AFBI determining their fees. So it has always been full cost recovery right back since 2011 when it was introduced. But the costs were calculated on the basis of the information that we had. So AFBI have now introduced the strategic cost model, as I've already said, and it would appear to be a more accurate way of determining the cost. I think the fact that we've erred on the low side does show that we haven't tried to pass unnecessary costs on to the operators.
It might be worth explaining that the operators do most of the sampling themselves, and a very small percentage of the samples are done as official samples, and the only samples that have to be tested in the National Reference Laboratory are the official samples. So that's why there's a lot of the industry samples are done at whichever lab they decide. Yeah.
Joanne Duffy.
Thanks, Chair. Can I thank you for your briefing? Again, like the Chair, I was quite alarmed to read the massive increase, £3,200 to £7,100 for 4,000 eggs. That is a huge, huge jump.
I do recognise that.
What impact do you feel these increases will have on the local poultry farmers?
Pardon?
was just going to say that these tests are optional, and the only time any laying farmers, it's only egg-laying farmers that have the option of using these tests, and it would happen if they have a positive salmonella result for enteritis or typhimurium, then they can challenge that result and use any of those 4 options. So there are other options there that are a lot cheaper, environmental sampling or fecal sampling of the birds that they can opt for.
But if they have salmonella, then, you know, that recommendation, obviously, the increases from the fees 14.15 to 15 to your proposals, but you're proposing, that is, it just beggars belief, the massive, massive rise. I know what you're saying is optional, but if they have salmonella, that is one of the options that they feel that they have to avail of. And I know, I'm just wondering, any poultry farmers listening in, will they accept that explanation? Because I know the Ulster Farmers Union young farmers certainly don't. They're very, very concerned about this. So can I ask then, what plans do you have to amend your proposals following the Ulster Farmers Union and Young Farmers Clubs of Ulster's response to consultation?
Well, we do plan, as I said in the presentation, to write to those organisations on an individual basis to explain to them that the Department operates on a full cost recovery basis, and that's in compliance with the policy agreed, you know, recommended by Department of Finance and Personnel.
So you're going to write to them, you're going to consult with them, are you going to listen to them, their concerns?
We certainly listen to the concerns and take the concerns on board, but the point about it is that the Department is obliged to do this on a full cost recovery basis, and that would be the same for any similar scheme. So,
I note that you say that in your quote, the most significant increases are in the optional test, as you've explained to the Chair, which are only undertaken, as you have already said, Sandra, when disease is suspected. So it's a double whammy, in effect, for many poultry farmers, because more disease, the higher the inspection or the testing fees. That just seems a double whammy. It seems, given the concerns that we've heard from the Ulster Farmers Union and the Young Farmers Clubs of Ulster, I think more than a consultation or a letter, I think surely their opinions need to be listened to.
I'm certainly prepared to meet and discuss with them. I mean, that would always be an option, and I would offer that in the letter. But, you know, sorry to repeat myself, but the policy is that we will comply with the DFP guidance and, you know, carry this out on a full cost recovery basis.
Right, it seems astonishing. I note you, finally, Chair, if I may, you tell us that APFI is the designated national reference lab, and therefore all confirmed disease must be carried out by them. Can the private sector be considered for testing, and could this provide maybe a better option? Has that been considered?
Well, the Department's never been approached by a private lab for designation, but, you know, any approach that would be made would certainly be considered by the Department within the framework of what the EU requires. It's possible that
The EU require that national reference labs are typically government laboratories. So the National Reference Lab, in terms of GB, is what was previously the Veterinary Laboratories Agency, now the Animal and Plant Health Agency. So 2 designated laboratories, APHA in GB and ourselves in Ireland. But as Sandra or Dennis has referred to, the majority of sampling undertaken within industry, they do have the option to send to private labs. It's only the minority of testing, which are official samples, that have to come through to ourselves and incur the charges.
Okay. I hope their views are taken on board, because that is alarming, the rise. Thank you.
Chair, thanks for the presentation. Apart from the Farmers Union and the Young Farmers and Veterinary organisation, have you had any direct discussions with the poultry industry?
not this year, but I mean this is an established policy that has been in operation for a number of years, and we did issue the consultation 59 targeted at the poultry industry. The 59 poultry organisations or bodies were contacted. Only 3 of them replied to that consultation. But as I've said, this is an established policy. There is a fee increase every year, and I do take on board for the increase this year, and some of the fees is bigger than normal, but it's an established policy and the opportunity to respond to the consultation. Very few of them actually.
Have you met directly with the Farmers Union, or just relying on their response?
We've relied on the response in the specific issue, but I do meet regularly with the Farmers Union, so there would be, there would be ample opportunity.
Would it not be preferable, given such a hike this time, and I appreciate other years it wasn't near this size of an increase. But given the huge increase this time, would it not have been sensible or reasonable to actually invite the Farmers Union for a meeting and explain the situation so that they can give their views directly? Because I think it's fine having a consultation, but you know the responses back, and especially in an issue like this, will be. You don't have to look the people in the face and tell them that you're increasing some of their testing mechanisms by almost 120%.
Well, as I say, we didn't invite the Ulster Farmers Union or anyone else specifically, but we certainly would have been open to meet with anybody that had approached us.
Would you meet with them now?
Yes.
Chair, I would make a formal proposal that I recommend to them that this committee should recommend to them that they should meet directly with the Farmers Union as a side issue. Can you explain?
Well, I'll certainly make the offer to them. It will be up to them whether they actually want to meet. I'm actually meeting with the UFU about other issues tomorrow, so I'll be able to speak to them then, possibly.
Okay. Can you explain to me what happens for those payments? How are the payments made up?
How the payments made up? How
do you calculate the full cost recovery of those payments?
The DARD element of the time, which is the collection of the samples, is just basically the time of the sampling officer going out to do it.
Of a DARD sampling officer?
Yes. So that it's the time that is charged for. Things like petrol and mileage isn't part of it. It's just the official's time in collecting the sample. The operator signs a form. Agreeing that the person has been present for whatever period of time it is, and on that basis the apartment component is calculated.
So am I right in saying just taking the first activity, taking or supervising the taking of official controlled samples is £59 for the first half hour, and then £26 an hour after that?
Yes.
So the staff that are carrying that out must be paid around £26 an hour?
Well, this is in compliance with the recommendations of how fees would be calculated on the basis of the whole book. This is the recommended way of calculating them.
Is it a veterinary officer that has to take those?
No. It doesn't have to be a veterinary officer.
It's never a veterinary officer.
Yeah.
Animal Health and Welfare Inspector, which would be the lowest technical grade in veterinary service.
Okay. I'm not sure what a technical grade is. Is that a high-level grade, or is that a... I'm sure it's above an administration officer, but...
Yeah, but I'm actually trying to think of what it would be in comparison to the civil service admin grades, but it's what would be called a Group 1 staff.
Yes.
From my understanding, Sandra, it would be close to an administrative officer.
EO, thereabouts, yeah.
Administrative officer stroke maybe EO2 is in that region from...
Optional testing of environmental sample taken from caged laying hens, £85.26 for 5 fecal and 2 dust samples, 126.53. That's again an increase of almost 50%. Again, what's the time for that?
Well, that's not...
No, the increase is totally related to the AFB component of the cost. It's not the veterinary staff time that's increasing at all. There's no increase at all in that component of the fees, of any of the fees this year.
So the £59 counts as the time, and the other costs you see in that table are all for the actual tests themselves done by the laboratory.
So the first one is only the time, the rest is for the
The first
tests?
one's the actual taking of the samples, the rest are all the testing of them.
Okay. And most of those can be carried out in a range of laboratories. It doesn't have to be AFBI.
Just the official samples that are required by the EU have to be done by AFBI, the National Reference Lab. So the majority is done elsewhere at the user's discretion, at the operator's discretion.
And the operator's discretion is the department or the owner?
The owner. Or the company in cases of the big companies.
Okay, so sorry for...
It's quite confusing.
Clear in my head.
It's just...
If the operator or the owner or farmer, whatever you call the person, they have another charge on top of that with the testing facility, or is that included within that?
That's entirely.
two separate tests. So, for example, I'll just give you an example. If you're a broiler keeper, then you have to test your livestock. You have to take environmental samples every 2 weeks throughout their life. But there has to be one official sample taken by the competent authority, the one we take, and we take that 3 weeks before slaughter. So all the other samples that are taken, sent to whatever laboratory they want to send them to. But the one official one that we take has to go to AFBI, the National Reference.
And this is only for the official one, is it, these costs?
Only the official ones.
Do they have further costs on top of this?
They do, absolutely, yes. But those costs are the costs for them getting their samples tested for salmonella.
So these are only for costs that goes to AFBI, which to me sounds like a single market. There are no alternatives except to do this through AFBI.
Well, the only other alternative would be to send it to GB or to another member state, because that's the only national reference laboratory for salmonella in Northern Ireland. AFBI.
Okay. And there has never been another application for another
There hasn't.
official testing?
In the EC terms, official labs are typically government labs because they're meant to bring a degree of independence rather than commercial laboratories.
But then that's saying that you don't trust other laboratories, just the way it could be easily said that the department wouldn't trust independent veterinary practitioners to carry out TB tests.
That wasn't the words I used. What I said was,
No, but that's the inference.
I think, under the EC legislation, the European Community has decided that a certain percentage of testings to be able to give independence and be able to compare results across different member states should be carried out in official labs.
Okay, so there is no other option only to go to the single market in Northern Ireland, which is AFBI.
At present, there's not, no.
The other, from the majority of tests are carried out on a routine basis. The charges in GB by the Animal Health and Plant, or Animal Plant Health Agency, are higher than the charges that we apply. It's only in some of the optional tests where our costs are higher than theirs. For the majority of the routine official tests, our costs are lower than the current.
But what you're saying is a lot of the official ones are higher?
Only some of the optional.
The vast majority of them are lower. Three of the optional tests, three of the proposed fees for the optional tests are higher than DEFRA, but the remaining ones, which are all the compulsory ones, and the other optional tests are all lower.
Okay.
Okay, Tom.
All right, thanks, Chair.
Honourable Mike Mullin.
Mr. Chair, are your hands not tied by the DFP on full recovery on their policy, full recovery costs?
Well, to a very large extent, I would say yes. The government policy is that this type of scheme is operated in a full cost recovery, because the only other alternative to that is that the government puts it out of the taxpayer, out of the public purse.
That's what I'm going to make there. So if you didn't go with the DFP policy and lowered your price, that price would have to be, the differential would have to be raised elsewhere.
Yes.
So really, our hands are tied with this.
Well, in compliance with the DFP recommendations, our hands are tied to that extent.
I noticed the Veterinary Association in England are looking for a full recovery, what should be a level playing field.
Yeah, that's right, but that's not a realistic option at all. I mean, we're writing to them to explain to them. I mean, we don't have control over what other member states would charge, nor do we have any scope to gain control of that from the EU. So all we can do is try and keep ours down as much as we possibly can on the basis of the cost recovery. And
get this right now, if you did lower your cost, the differential would have to be quite aware.
It would come out of the public purse. The department would have to sustain the differential.
That would come out of their budget then. Thank you.
Okay, Tom McGann.
For the average poultry farmer, what does this mean in financial terms for them of an increase?
I don't have a figure with me today for the average poultry farmer. What I can say is that the amount of money that is recovered by the department on an annual basis is in the region of £36,000. So it's not a massive amount of money in overall terms.
Right. Given the hike of the increase, why could it not have been phased in over a year or two rather than just bring it all at once?
Well, the fees are reviewed on an annual basis and they're amended on an annual basis. So, whereas last year the department was actually able to reduce a few of the charges, this year it's swung the other way, and a few of them are going up. But there is an annual review carried out, an annual amendment to the regulations. So it's an annual exercise, and this year, unfortunately, some of them are going up quite substantially.
Okay.
Okay. Edwin, you want a question?
No, it's covered.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? No. How many tests does OFBI do each year? I mean, in total, do you have any idea of that?
The number of official tests, the information I've been given, is 850 to 900 is the ballpark number of official tests that we carry out on an annual basis.
Okay. You say you're meeting the Ulster Farmers Union?
Well, I'm meeting Ulster Farmers Union reps tomorrow about other issues, not about this specifically, but I mean, I will certainly mention it to them and take their views, but yes, I'll certainly do that, or meet them separately if that's what you prefer.
Okay. What's the best way? Is it possible to report back to us after you speak with Farmers Union again?
Yes.
Yeah, is that possible? Because I think we've got some concerns in the committee, and we would like to speak to you again after every meeting with the Farmers Union, if that's possible.
Written briefing.
Written briefing, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine.
At this stage, are members content that the regulations move to the next legislative stage or not?
Sorry, what's the next stage, Chair?
You bring the SR.
The department's intention would be to have this SR operational from the 1st of April. So we're hoping to proceed to SL1 and have the legislation made in the next few days.
Okay. Members, any views now before we...
Chair, I'd prefer, before we give it any further progress, that we hear from Farmers Union. I know it's very tight on this, but...
I think it's pretty tight, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe useful if we were to ask them for a briefing as well, even a written briefing to ourselves.
Yeah, we could take some time to set up a or say for something.
But even if we had a written briefing.
Written briefing, okay. We'll get a written briefing from the Farmers Union and we'll come back to this, okay? Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Okay. Then item 6, oral briefing Dard Farm Business Improvement Scheme. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at page 82 to 85 and papers from the department at page 86 to 96? I advise members that the department have requested that the whole farm needs assessment at pages 97 to 104 is treated in confidence and not circulated any further at this stage. There's also a revised form to replace the form at page 86 to 96. This is being tabled, I think, at the moment. Can I welcome Colette McMaster, grade 5, Lane McCory, grade 6, Michael McLean, grade 7. You're very welcome. Can I ask you to take up to 10 minutes for your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for the opportunity to provide you with a briefing on the proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme, the FBIS. I'm supported today by Elaine McCrory, who leads on agri-food policy, and Michael McLean from Rural Development Division, who's leading on the whole farm needs assessment survey exercise that we're planning to launch. I'll start with a brief outline on progress in developing the proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme. I'll then hand over to Michael, who will talk about the whole farm needs assessment survey. As the committee is aware, in its Going for Growth report, the Agri-Food Strategy Board recommended a £250 million FBIS. The Board has asked for a scheme that will improve competitiveness and productivity in farming through upskilling, knowledge transfer, advice and capital investment. As officials have outlined previously to the committee, a proposed FBIS is an important part of the draft 2014 to 2020 Rural Development Programme. The proposals for a Farm Business Improvement Scheme within the RDP include a package of resource and capital measures to support sustainable growth in the farming sector. On the 14th of October 2014, the committee received an oral briefing on the draft RDP before it was submitted to the EU Commission for approval. At present, DARD is waiting for the Commission's formal comments on the draft programme. On receipt of those comments, DARD officials will work with the Commission to make any necessary changes to the content of the draft RDP. We anticipate that June 2015 will be the earliest possible date for the EU approval of the RDP, and officials will return to the committee during its forward work programme to provide an update on the EU approval process for the RDP. Meanwhile, work is underway to develop the necessary business cases for the proposed FBIS. A draft strategic outline case for the FBIS has been submitted to DFP in January 2015, and we are engaging with DFP officials on finalising that SOC. Subject to the approval of the SOC, we plan to complete outline business cases to cover the range of measures in the FBIS, and each outline business case will explore in detail the need for the FBIS sub-schemes, their objectives, options, costs, benefits and other issues. The business case process will conclude on the best way forward for each proposed sub-scheme within the FBIS. In rolling out the proposed FBIS, we are planning for the early focus to be on making advice and support available to farmers to help them clearly identify their needs and make the right decisions about developing their business. Importantly, the Whole Farm Needs Assessment survey exercise that we're about to launch will help farmers to start thinking about how they can develop their businesses sustainably and prepare in advance for any future capital investment. The Whole Farm Needs Assessment will give farmers an opportunity to inform DARD of the barriers they face in meeting their business objectives, and this in turn will help to shape scheme development to best meet the needs of farmers. In terms of funding for DARD actions to deliver ongoing for growth commitments, £2 million of resource funding and £2 million capital funding has been allocated to going for growth actions within DARD's budget for 2015-2016. Subject to the necessary EU approval and business case approval, these initial allocations would help begin delivery of the proposed FBIS in 2015-16. Much of the funding for the FBIS and other agri-food industry support will be capital, and so will be drawn down for the longer term beyond 2015-16. DARD will bid for additional funding as required in year and in future years depending on industry demand. At this point, I'll hand over to Michael McLean, who will say more about the planned Whole Farm Needs Assessment.
Chairman Committee, I welcome this opportunity to present the Whole Farm Needs Assessment. You will be provided with the final copy, what we hope to issue, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail later. So really the ABCS is being, as Colette touched on, it's a tool which will assist farmers and growers in assessing their own business objectives and needs over the coming years. I'll go through the key benefits for farmers and also how it feeds into what DARD needs are as well. It provides a structure to enable farmers to plan in advance, and that really instills the principles of business planning practice. Identifies barriers to change, tests the market in assessing the appropriate type, level and timing of government support needed by farmers to meet those business objectives. This includes both non-capital needs and capital investment. It also allows farmers to consider their potential requirements that need to be thought of in advance and of any project really in terms of planning, legislation and health and safety. Critically, it will assist DARD in developing a baseline of need and for farm business investment and improvement in terms of non-capital as well, to enable us to design further a scheme that best fits with the needs of farmers. So a bit about the form itself. It's important to note that it's not an application form, and through completing it no preference will be given to farmers, but we are expecting that farmers who begin to complete it will understand quickly and realise the benefits of the process they're going through in completing it. It's really about helping farmers to plan the future direction of their business and think about what their investment needs are and what their training and support needs are. We've already significantly tested this. This is really an idea hatched over a year ago. We've already significantly road tested earlier versions of the form, which has evolved into about 45, is the 45th version in around. And we've tested a number of farmer workshops across our 3 colleges, and we've received really good feedback on it, and we've taken on board comments all the way through. We've also engaged with a wide spectrum of the farming organisations and banks as well, who are in support of it as well in terms of channeling farmers' ideas and instilling that concept of good business planning focus. The form has been designed in a very simplified format. It's a portable document format. It's a mainstream method of collecting information. That means it's going to be more efficient for us to collect the information electronically, and we feel it'll be exceptionally easy to use, and this has been evidenced by our tests and pilots with farmers. In terms of going through the form itself, I have to apologise initially because this here is the electronic version, which you would see generally landscape on the screen, so it'll be a lot larger. Once we will have a hard copy version of this as well. So I'll just go through the general key areas of this form, and I'll be flicking to the second page overleaf, and these really will just show the simplicity of filling the form by ticking boxes around identifying, firstly and most importantly, the business objectives and what those barriers to investment might be. So it's quite an extensive list there, but it's easy to capture information, but provide a wealth of information for us to establish the need. Get the farmer thinking about what those needs are, what the challenges are for them. And then moving across to the next page, the top of the page under section 3.4, we're signposting those non-capital measures, because we want them to think about those who haven't participated before, maybe, that maybe to be aware of potential other support schemes, some under farm business investment schemes, some on other areas like diversification. So this lets them think about their training needs and the non-capital. I would like to draw a particular reference to the health and safety training. The committee be aware of the health and safety, how we promote that through the Farm Safety Partnership, how we've had the awareness sessions through the Focus Farms, and the need through the new Farm Safety Partnership Action Plan to mainstream health and safety. Farm SafeNet tool is ready. It was deployed last year in July. We want to promote health and safety again and awareness through completion of that tool. Jumping to section 5, there are other areas in terms of equipment expenditure, but jumping to section 5 on capital expenditure and construction, you can see the wealth of information we're going to collect there in terms of the finance and scale of buildings, for example, and key areas of housing, handling, nutrient storage, feed storage, roofing, protected growing structures, and it's also split across sectors and the scale of investment in terms of construction. So we also profiled that when we go across at the end of that section across the years and saying what would you do with grant assistance and how to progress without. And that leads into how they plan to measure the success of the grant aid, which is a common question we ask in any business planning. So it's important that farmers realistically channel and assess the measure of success for any proposed project. So they look at things like how the funding impact will have, would they progress at a larger scale, more quickly to a higher standard, for example, and also assess the range of impacts. Very much the Commission will be looking to measure not just outputs but actual impacts and get farmers thinking about those in advance whenever they're business planning. So, for example, thinking about whether it's to increase animal health, performance, or through effective storage of their crop. In terms of submitting the timescale and results, the form is essentially to be emailed through Darren, and we've already set up the processes and the procedures to do that. And as you receive them, because of the tool we're using, it'll be automatically collated and the results will be available immediately. So we'll be able to check the distribution geographically across the sectors to make sure we have a representative return that comes in as well. So we hope to promote this electronic tool through the DARD website. There'll be a range of assistance through there in terms of frequently asked questions, guidance and linkage to more information. So it will also be promoted through our stakeholders who are engaged in the process and the design. They've agreed to promote it through their PR as well, using things like text messages and so on, and through publications. And I mentioned we plan to monitor that and have that information at our fingertips. So I'd just like to close and say we'd like to encourage farmers who are planning to make changes to their business in the future to complete the survey over the coming days and weeks.
and it's an opportunity for them to consider and tell us about their business needs and their objectives and inform our scheme's design.
Thank you, Michael. As Michael has said, we would encourage farmers to consider completing the survey. It's designed to help farmers assess their business needs as they plan ahead for the next few years, and in turn, information from the survey will help us to shape the development of the FBIS to best meet the needs of farmers. We're happy to take questions that you might have on the process of developing the FBIS and the whole farm needs assessment survey.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. In relation to the survey, will these be sent out to farms, or will it just be online, or what's the situation in relation to that?
Well, the form will be accessible through the website for download online, and we're trying to encourage the electronic submission of it. Okay. However, there will be hard copy versions available on request, and we set up email addresses to handle those queries for those who want them.
Well, I think it could be useful. There is slight dangers in that some people are just... If people would impress on people to be fairly accurate in what they intend to do, not just, you want to get a fairly good and accurate assessment, whereby, I think it's important that farmers would realise, put on this what they realistically intend to do. I'm not so sure how you do that, but that you ensure that farmers are fairly realistic in what.
I think in terms of the electronic form, we have hover-over buttons to try to reinforce that message about being realistic. Yeah. And again, you'll see on projecting spend across the years, like we know previously in farm modernisation, we weren't sure whether there were going to be subsequent tranches. We know this capital investment scheme spans a number of years, so it's trying to stage them and make sure we don't get in a situation, about underspend situation, that we channel and target that. So. Yes, we would hope that farmers, and from our pilot exercise, they have been realistic, and we've put calculators in there in terms of things like nutrient storage. We've put in the size of buildings where you might need planning permission, and makes them think realistically, and also areas, things like categories to do with drainage, that lets them think about, ask them about benefit and so on.
In relation to planning permission, of course, 75 square metres is quite small building, so that's going to create an issue. Whereby, in many instances today, large farms or farms that build existing buildings on their own 75 square metres and probably don't seek plan permission because they're not getting grant aid, and it's fairly well accepted. But once they're getting grant aid now, they're going to have plan permission in place. Is there grant aid on the application? It's quite hefty fees for large buildings, actually.
Well, planning permission will be required regardless of grant aid, obviously there be. And certainly, as planning moves to the councils, we need to look at what sort of assistance we can provide them. But planning is something we expect them to consider now. And and there's other issues to do with construction as well, with health and safety. There's the new CDM regulations came out in 2007 and revised lately. So we hope to guide farmers in that thinking process. Okay.
In relation to you're talking about it'll be at least June before you get clearance from the RDP from Europe. If that being the case, when's it hope to roll out the scheme? If you do get clearance by June?
I think, we need the formal EU approval of the programme. Yeah. We need as well to have the DFP approval of the business case, and there are a range of business cases for the OBCs. So, subject to that, then we'd hope to open the programme. We're envisaging that an FBIS would be rolled out in a phased way. Really, I mean, as we've said in the presentation, the focus in the early stages would be on providing training and support for business planning to help farmers prepare for any capital investment. So that would be the focus in the early stages, so any capital element would come after that sort of initial stage. But all of this still caveated with the need to get the EU approval at this stage.
I probably understand that, but I mean,
case approval.
Is it possible to have that up and running by the end of this year, or do you not think that's possible?
For the scheme, for parts of the scheme, to start with, what we would, in our thinking, we have money allocated in the 2015-2016 budget, and we have.
Must that be spent in 2015-16?
Well, the money has been allocated for going for growth activities. So it must be spent because it's part of our budget, 15-16. So we would like to be able to use that money for some the initial sort of rolling out of the FBIS. So subject just getting the necessary approvals from the Commission and the business case, then we would like to be able to be using some of that money for that.
Okay. One other issue before I pass on to members. Clarity around it's a 10% top-up for young farmers. There are quite a few young farmers that are under 40, but as yet are already ahead of holding. Will they be able to receive a top-up?
Well, again, and I suppose just like a lot of the sort of questions about detail, we can't commit on the detail of anything, as it's still subject to the approvals of the programme and so on. But what we have, as the draft programme that has gone to the Commission, certainly we have said that there is potential for additional grant aid of 10% under the capital investment scheme for those defined as young farmers. Within the Rural Development Regulation, a young farmer is defined as a farmer who's under 40 years of age and has become a head of holding within the 5 years preceding the application. So that's the Rural Development Regulation itself will set some criteria for that.
But it will discriminate against someone that is already holding for more than 5 years and still is under 40. That's the issue I have.
In terms of the regulation, the Rural Development Regulation as it's written is that it's the head of holding will be someone who is about to become head of holding or who has become head of holding within previous 5 years. Yeah.
That could rule out quite a number of people that are still under 40, if you understand. Could rule out a sizable number of people under 40. Okay, Edwin, Poots.
Yeah, I was just wanting clarity on that issue. So, is actually you can only have become a head of holding in the last 5 years to be eligible for the Young Farmer Grant?
Well, it's the Rural Development Regulation.
Yeah.
It's saying that it's the young farmer is someone who has become head of holding within 5 years preceding the application. So that's the way that it's defined. Just to sort of, in addition to that, then there is the criteria is also that the farmer is head of holding and possesses adequate occupational skills and competence. So that's an additional aspect as well.
Yeah, so you have to have done courses.
Well, as part of this, in finalising the schemes, we will need to determine what that is and what the adequate occupational skills and competence are. So we'll do that as we're finalising.
So, in terms of grant aid, you're looking at 40% for is that capital developments?
Yeah, there's in the draft programme that's gone to the Commission. We have said that there would be up to 40% grant aid, and that's the amount of support that we've put forward in the programme that's gone to the Commission.
That up to 40% plus 10% for a young farmer?
That's what that would. That's in effect what that would be.
But if you're heavily oversubscribed, that would allow you to go to less than 40%.
Well, how we would, the detail of really what the actual final, support is going to be is still to be final. It's still to be determined. At this stage, we haven't got formal comments or views back from the Commission on any of the proposals that we have put in. So we will be in a better position. We're scheduled to, in your forward work programme to come back after Easter, and we'd hope by that point that we would have received formal comments from the Commission and we'll be able to talk more about the sort of response that we've got and how we were dealing with that.
And in terms of machinery, it seems to be, machinery which is generally mounted upon tractors and so forth. But are we looking at storage tankers, obviously, with triple bars and things like that there, and shoes? You also talk about grassland. Are you looking at grass cutting equipment, harvesting equipment and so forth?
Well, I think in the whole farm needs assessment, we're asking quite extensive questions about what it is that farmers' needs are within their business. So I think really what we're trying to do at this stage, and that's why the survey is important, and we are encouraging people to complete that and come back, is to actually get to get that information about what are the needs of the farms.
So this is a trick question. Are you not actually sure as to everything that you do intend to cover at this stage?
That's right. It will be down to the farmer's need. And his own business plan, basically. There are some items that are not eligible for support.
Yeah, well, you see them in the back, but that's an awful lot of items are eligible for support at that point.
Yeah.
And
it will be down to the business plan. Finalise the scheme itself and how the final details of that, but then it will be down to the individual farmers' business planning.
And I know it's hard to get an answer to this question from the actual farmer, but would they have done this in any event? Would they have carried out this extension? Would they have improved these buildings? Would they have bought this piece of machinery in any event? Is there anything built in there for that?
Well, I think the survey, there is a question there that is trying to take that out partly.
Yeah, sorry. In each one of the sections, equipment which you refer to there does mention about. It's the bottom of the page there on the third page. It would talk about indicated your projected spend is with the 40%, and then on the second one, well, how would you progress without it? That's why we talk about the same level of expenditure sooner, because that might profile as being later or lesser. We'll gauge that additionality element as well, and that helps reinforce the need in the business case.
Edwin, okay. Declan McAleer. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to pick up on the young farmer question as well, but he must have been preempting me, Chair. I suppose one of the questions did Michael that in relation to completing the assessment, it's not an application form. There'd be no preference given to complete that. Is it compulsory to complete it, and what incentive is there to complete it?
Well, it's not compulsory to complete it, but the incentive that we have, having tested it through farmers, they see the need immediately for it.
Yeah.
And in a way, there is that vacuum, and really what the farming organisations have said, a tool like this allows them to think in advance, and we touched on the fact there was going to be these non-capital measures, support mechanisms. So in a way, we had hoped to use online means to communicate effectively. So the questions are already starting to gather up in the industry. They can look and see there, well, this will help me. So we are confident, and given that the industry are strongly in support of this, that we will promote it, monitor and continue to promote it. So yes, well, there's no incentive. In effect, this is a really useful tool that we've spent a lot of time building up, a lot of work and complexity in the background to try to make it as simple as possible and as informative as possible to the farmer. So we do encourage again and hope that there will be strong feedback on it.
I suppose that the other thing is kind of linked to incentives, I suppose, as well. A note there for the likes of the Tier 1 project, you could apply for funding of around, say, 5,000, right? See there for the Tier 1, obviously a registered farm business plan, farm safety awareness training course. Do you think there's any danger that having to participate and go through this here could be a disincentive? If at the end of it, the grant is in around £5,000 or £6,000.
Well, I think the concept of business planning, we would expect them to be proportionate business plans for based on the level of risk, the level of expenditure and complexity. We expect particularly a more simple business plan to go through. So that's what we have to look at in terms of scheme design, what that might look like. But we do not want to introduce collecting more information than we need to justify that level of expenditure. So.
get on.
Okay, Tom.
Chair, thanks. Thank you for the presentation. I'm assuming this is like a mini business plan for all farms. That's essentially what it is. Just wondering, have you any idea yet about categories around where that money may be spent or directed? I think you said, was it 2 million capital and 2 million revenue? Is that right?
Well, just come in on the overall sort of funding for the whole Farm Business Improvement Scheme. I mean, we do have the Agri-Food Strategy Board, I suppose, in Growing for Growth. They have recommended that an FBIS that is worth 250 million in total over. What we have is executive approval to build into the RDP 2014 to 2020, an FBIS that's worth up to 250 million, subject to demand from industry, subject to the need that there is out there. So there have been allocations across the various sub-schemes of the FBIS. So we've provided a breakdown of that. And this is on our website as part of the draft RDP summary. But for the capital element, it's up to 200 million. And then the other measures that are in there, because it's a package of capital and also other resource-type measures, there are a range of schemes that you'll see in the draft programme that are also part of the FBIS. The European Innovation Partnership Groups, and the indicative allocation for that is 0.77 million.
Yeah, but I think what I'm trying to get at, what will it mean for the farmer on the ground? What type of projects will they be possible to avail of?
Well, in terms of the, I mean, there's a range of sort of training that we're proposing. In the first instance, where we would see the focus would be to help them with business planning and so on, to sort of help them with and prepare for sort of any capital investment they might want to make on their farm and so on. There would be that training would be covering business planning. Michael has mentioned health and safety training. There's a range of, in that sort of signposting part of the whole farm needs assessment. There's a range of support that farmers may need over these coming years as they're sort of planning. This survey is a sort of an opportunity for us to gather information about what the likely demand or need for any of that sort of support might be. I mean, from, I think this is very important.
We're really quite a distance from saying what type of on-farm help there will be or assistance. That's what you're saying?
We're not, this is a step before we firm up on the detail of the schemes. Yeah. This is to allow us to actually gather information that will help us shape the schemes themselves. So what we're wanting to do is gather what are farmers' needs out there over the coming years. What do they see their needs as in terms of both the resource, the support and training and advice, as well as capital investment. So we want to use that information to help shape schemes that best meet the needs that farmers have.
So there's a massive paper exercise before farmers ever get anything on the ground?
This exercise isn't, it's designed online. You can complete it in hard copy.
Well, administrative exercise, should I say? Let's not.
Can I just add, in terms of the way the form is designed, it collects information almost as soon as we see them. So if we got 1,000 or 10,000 applications, we can have the results literally ready within an hour. And we'd hope to be able to profile and look at the distribution across sectors, types of spend, and have that at our fingertips. It's not a paper sifting exercise. We'd hope to be able to collate it using most up-to-date tools to do that in the background. As I mentioned before, we've spent a lot of time and effort in the background to make sure it's easy at the foreground to collect the information.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Michael. Most farmers will be wanting to know what does it mean on the ground for the individual farm.
Okay, Tom.
We're not at that stage yet, but what it will give us, if I can just add as well, mentioned that, as well as the EU Commission approval, we'll need, within the department, to get DFP approval of the business cases before we can spend any money. And this information that we're hoping to gather through the survey will give us very good evidence that we can use in the business cases, so as to demonstrate what the need is out there. Yep.
Just one follow-up to Edwin Poots, the 5-year on the young farmer as head of holding. Is there any exemptions to that at all?
That's the Rural Development Regulation, so no, there isn't flexibility.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay. In.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that, there's no such thing as special circumstances, no?
In relation to the young farmer definition, that's the Rural Development Regulation as it's written. So I'm not, and I'm not aware of any circumstances around.
You know, it's just a thought there. You know, so listening to what has been said, no, I think this here is a good thing. You know, I think it's given voice to farming out there to actually tell the department what their needs really is, right? So, in that sense, there, I think it's a very good idea. I think also there that, you know, there's a publicity need around all of this, you know, to the community out there. Then, after that publicity, how do you go about? There's going to be an application parade, aren't there?
There will be now. Again, and I'll have to come back to this again, but after we have the approvals in place.
Yeah, So there's that application period, right, you know, which will end before actually anybody has been given any grant money. Is that right?
Yes.
And then from the applications there, you'll determine how much exactly the farmers, up to 40%. Is that right? So do you envisage there, you know, that there's going to be a great uptick in this here, and that means there that farmers could end up there with maybe it's even in the capital is there, you know, 10-20%. No? The pot of money is available.
Yeah, I think that the survey itself will give us a good idea about, at this stage, I mean, and I know it's a sort of snapshot going out now, but it'll give an idea of what the demand is likely to be over a period of 5 years, I think. We're asking farmers to profile. So it'll give a good sense of the amounts of money that maybe taken, used or needed in grant support from government if we go through with this. That will in turn allow us to inform the bids that we would need to make. Mentioned that we have already got some money allocated in 15-16, but looking into the next budget periods then, this sort of information will help inform bids that would go into the future budget funds. Okay. So we'll be continuing to monitor it and the amount of demand there is and the amount of money that's required and so on.
Can I just add as well, in terms of we expect the non-capital measures to get off the ground first and lead into whether it's farm family key skills, the discussion groups that will help to channel farmers, so additional need will be coming forward from that as well. So it's not the only mechanism, and we also have substantial reviews of previous schemes which have been held as well, where we built on the lessons from. So this is one mechanism, but there's a range of ones and a lead up. So it'll not be just a matter of the capital scheme becoming available without other support mechanisms coming first. That will not be the case.
Just one other question. Among the farming community, you heard very often saying that if you get to go through these grant schemes and all the rest of it, there's so much bureaucracy and regulations, you know, that they're a lot cheaper there with the grant even. So, you know, is this here going to be an exercise there that will give the edge to farmers, or is it going to be something that we better not even bother with?
We would like it to think it would give the edge and certainly channel the interest and would gear them up so that they would have not only just the skills, but that they will see the effort they're putting is proportionate. And we do realise that we need to bring in simplification as much as possible and try to equip the farmers so as they can complete it. We're not putting in more than what we actually need to put in for them, but we feel it's a two-way process. We want the farmer to take ownership of their plan. It's not just about the capital grant, it's about their future development needs in the round.
Very much, thanks.
Joanne Dobson.
Thanks, Chair. Apologies for missing your briefing, so it may have already been covered. And like Tom Elliott, I do share some of the concerns, and you spoke about a paper exercise, and I suppose I made it clear in interest. My husband's a beef and cereal farmer. You may already have covered this, Colette, but when previously you told us, I think it was back in October, that the scheme will be directed and targeted at farmers, and you went on to talk in detail about the training measures and support which would be put in place to help farmers make the right choices. So what form do you envisage is training taken, and roughly what percentage of the total budget?
Yeah, I think that's we'll cover in terms of how we would see the FBIS rolling out. In the first phase, the focus would be on training and support to help farmers to make the right choices about how they propose to develop their businesses. There are indicative allocations already within the draft RDP 2014-2020. It's gone to the Commission. That indicates the amount of monies that are allocated within the draft programme to the various elements. Training element really is under farm family skills, and the indicative budget allocation for that over the period of the RDP is 2.7 million, and there's support proposed also through business development groups, which over the period of the RDP, the indicative allocation at this stage is 22.6 million. The capital element is the largest element of the overall funding that the indicative allocation is, for the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, which is 200 up to 200 million. So those are the indicative budget allocations in the draft RDP that's with the Commission. Over the period of the RDP, what we would want to do is keep the schemes under review and keep what are the needs out there, and keep that under review, and we can calibrate the scheme as needed to meet industry demand. We're still waiting, as I said at the earlier part of the session, for the EU Commission approval of the programme, of course, and for business case approval of the proposals. But subject to that, whenever the programme is approved, there is further opportunity throughout a programme period to a modification to the programme.
Note Michael's comments that simplification as much as possible. I sincerely hope that's true, because, and every farmer in the country does as well. How will you ensure then that the funds are evenly distributed across various sectors? What mechanisms have you to make sure that happens?
Well, at this stage, what we had quite a lot of discussion about how we would sort of allocate funds with the stakeholders as we were developing the programme, draft RDP. And so we haven't at this stage. Stakeholders were keen that we didn't, in developing the draft RDP that's gone to the Commission, stakeholders were keen that we didn't allocate any particular amounts to individual sectors, that we developed this as a scheme that was open to all sectors. So that's the way we have put forward our proposals to the Commission. We're awaiting comments back from the Commission, and we'll need to deal with those when we get those and consider those and take account of those, and we may need to come back to this.
But do you have an ideal split in your own mind of how you'd like to see this between the tiers? Do you envisage this happening?
No, at this stage, what we're wanting to do, I mean, we will gather information on what the need is out there from the whole farm needs assessment, and that will sort of help inform as well, just, you know, which sectors where the investments are likely to be, in which sectors at what time, and for what items or for what issues and so on. So we want to take account of the information that we gather in from farmers as well. We don't have a split at the moment in mind.
Okay. And finally, just to Chair, you spoke about the New Rural Development Programme as well. So what work has been done with the new council so that the legs are up and running as soon as possible?
There's been work done in terms of identifying or recruiting to the LAGs and so on, and there's ongoing work by colleagues in Dard with those structures by
Well, in terms of the farming side, I mean, we're working up the individual business cases, and you'll be aware there's a strategic outline case which was in the presentation. So we're continuing on to develop up the needs for that. You'll be aware on the current programme where likes of skills, which you'd asked about what would be in there, the farm family options had evolved into the collective skill process. And certainly we're hoping to build on that, and really the key themes in business planning, health and safety, animal welfare, online services and things like that, that all the work continues with that. And in terms of capital investment, I mean, you've seen the whole farm needs assessment, but we're also working on the business plan templates, the proportional ones we talked about. So we're not asking more than what we need to. We're also looking at a vast array of potential investment items and scoring them against things like going for growth, efficiency, animal welfare, health and safety, collaboration, the carbon footprint and so on. So we're coming up with the tools to make the decisions whenever we do get guidance from the Commission, and certainly and we do get the feedback about need to look at those various options and assess them when we've better data.
And as you look more to simplification. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Alderman Mull.
Yes, Chair. I congratulate you on that and apologise not for being here at the beginning of the meeting. So I hope this question hasn't been answered. I do think this is a good thing that's coming forward. We've had these before and we had the same type of questions and fears and worries, etc. But they all worked out. The only thing is that on the two-tier system, we talked about ring fencing, maybe, but we're going to have to wait and see. How we fix for time likewise, because if we go a business plan to the banks, how flexible is the banks going to be? Have we talked to the banks yet about this? This is the thing here, getting money out to people.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. We have talked to the banks, and certainly we're looking at we hope to agree some form of commonality between the questions we ask in terms of grant aid and the banks ask in terms of demonstration needs in their business plan. So again, they don't want to be asking any more questions than they have to, and very much we have talked to nearly all the banks on that, and we'll continue to talk to them as we develop up those processes. And so there's a common understanding of what's expected across all measures.
And will these work in tandem with when the programme starts? So, as in Europe behind in its assessments of the programmes?
Yeah, we're just saying at the beginning that the earliest possible date we will get EU approval for our programme is June 2015.
Right, congratulations on that. I think it'll be a good thing when it gets on with it.
Okay. I suppose I should have declared an interest earlier. I'm a farmer myself. I, for one, believe this could be very useful too. I know it is important that the department identifies where the need is, and we're not all over the place on this, so it is important. And hopefully farmers will give an accurate assessment of what they plan to do over the next few years, because it certainly could be very, very useful, and certainly could target the money to where it's needed.
You have a couple of more questions, Chairman. On you have there that in Tier 1, Tier 2, you have to do a biosecurity plan, and there's also business plans. Obviously, you want them to be reasonably well done. Are you going to provide a series of templates for farmers to do it, or is it something that they're going to have to go to somebody outside of their business to actually draw up for them, and that would be an additional cost?
Well, maybe I'll pass on to Michael from this, but certainly we're wanting, that's why we're wanting to start with sort of advice and training on business planning at the beginning. We also want the business plans to be proportionate, so that, for a lower sort of, for a Tier 1 business plan is not as clearly as it would need to be for higher investment. But I'll just ask.
Well, I think in terms of Tier 2 was the only one that mentioned about as drafted into, say, a biosecurity plan, but certainly on the business discussion knowledge transfer groups, which we would hope that a lot of interest to be channeled through. There'll be modules in there that will look at things like biosecurity and so on. So, and again, if there was mention of farm management plans, for example, there'd be support for that as well. So. We would hope to say that all the support would be there, and the forums will be designed and talked about proportionate templates that they will be guided through the process,
Be
depending.
capable of doing it without having to go and get consultants to do it on their behalf.
Well, it may be the case that the level of risk in the project, the complexity, they may need to avail of
Well,
that.
some projects you'd have to.
Yeah.
Could I just say, Chairman, Farming has been crying out for a project like this for years, and you drive around the country and you see the rusting roofs. There's plenty of evidence that farming has been struggling for a number of years. So I would strongly welcome this scheme and would commend the staff for the work that they've done. I think that form is relatively straightforward. If you're not capable of actually doing that form, you're probably not capable of farming. Let's be quite blunt about it, given the other paperwork that's involved with farming nowadays. And I think that is, a reasonable form which will garner useful information for yourselves. So I would say well done to the staff that have been involved in this.
Kevin, just in closing, can I also say, as a farmer, I welcome the fact that we're moving forward on this. It has been many, many years from the Has Been a Business Improvement of Farm Capital Grant Scheme. So farmers, as the previous speaker said, is crying out for help in this, and I think it will be widely used. So I think it's important that are you going to use the local farm papers to put out an ad that these are available? Because I think it's important that farmers know, and I think you get the widest possible assessment.
Well, absolutely. We know the things like if you're able to text out all their members, and there's other means to communicate. We'll be using the papers, and they've agreed to do a PR for us.
Have you a time limit for these to go back in?
Well, we'll have to always establish a time limit because we want to get the quant and get the farmers' minds focused.
It's got to be important.
Coming, so it's about a month. The 3rd of April we're asking for completed forms to be in by.
Back by the 3rd of April?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We're now moving into closed session. Item 9, Reservoirs Bill, consideration of the addendum to the committee report on the Reservoirs Bill. I refer members to the draft addendum to the report on the Reservoirs Bill at pages 114 to 128. Members will recall that at the meeting on the 10th of February, the committee agreed further amendments to clauses within the Reservoirs Bill as the report has already been signed off. These accepted amendments need to be added in addendum to the report. I will now take members through each section, paragraph of the addendum and seek members' agreement or otherwise. Before I go into this, have I still time to do this?
You have about 10-15 minutes.
Can we done it?
You can get that done at least.
Okay. Refer members to the executive summary at page 120. Okay. Members content with paragraph 1? Okay. Members content with paragraph 2? Members content with paragraph 3? Okay. Can I refer members to the background at page 121? Are members content with paragraph 4? Okay, members? Members content with paragraph 5? Okay. Refer members to the frequency of visits by supervising engineers at page 122. Refer members to paragraph 6. Paragraph 7. Paragraph 8.
122, come up 123.
Paragraph 9. Paragraph 10. Paragraph 11, which is a little more lengthy. Okay. Paragraph 12. 13. Paragraph 14. Paragraph 15. For members, 15 is okay, of course. Okay. Refer members to the summary of proposed amendments at page 125. And we have members content with paragraph 16. And members content with paragraph 17. Paragraph 18. Paragraph 19. Okay. Refer members to the committee decision on page 126. For members content with paragraph 20. There's one paragraph there. Yep. Okay. Refer members to the committee decision of the amendments at page 127. This page details the consideration of the recent amendments put forward by Rivers Agency and the committee decision. Are members content with this page?
Yeah.
In total?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I refer members to page 128, which details the content of each of the appendixes?
Agreed.
Agreed.
That's it.
Can I advise members that the report needs to contain the relevant extract from the minutes of today's meeting to outline the agreed content of the report? Can I seek agreement for the inclusion of today's minutes into the report prior to members having sight of them?
Agreed.
Okay. When the report has been agreed, Jane, we put the question that the Committee of Agriculture and Rural Development orders the Reservoir Bill report
Number today.
NIA 234 /
Stroke 11.
stroke 11 to 16. Great. Agenda item 10. Written brief, DART SL1, the Plant Health Amendment Order NI 2015 and the Plant Health Wood and Bark Amendment Order NI 2015. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at page 130 to 131 and papers from the department pages 132 to 188. I advise members that the EU regularly update the Plant Health Directive to include new or revised plant health risks or other developments. 3 new EU instruments came into force in 2014 and the technical changes required are reflected in the 2 regulations for consideration today. The proposed amendments have yet to be agreed by DSO, although DARD does not envisage any changes. The Department did receive infraction notification from the Commission due to the late transposition of the directives, as the deadline was the 30th September 2014. DARD has explained that the temporary loss of key skills and experience in the relevant area and have made assurances that the rules will be introduced by 27th of March 2015. This will mean that DARD will breach the 21-day rule and they will advise the examiner of statutory rules accordingly. Can I seek comments from members? Are members content that the regulations move to the next legislative stage?
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item 11, written brief, DARD SL1, the Agriculture Student Fees Amendment Regulations in NI 2015. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at page 190, 191 and papers from the department at pages 192 to 210. Can I advise members that the regulations for purpose proposed to increase tuition fees for agriculture students by 2.8% for the basic fee and 2.9% for the reduced tuition fee for the sandwich year. The increases in fees are determined by the underlying rate of inflation and are designed to maintain the fees constant on real terms. The Department previously consulted on tuition fees in 2012, and the outcome was fees for local students should maintain priority with the DAEL. Therefore, the regulations mirror the legislative amount set by DAEL via the SR 2014-116, which comes into operation on the 1st of September 2015. Can I seek comments from members? And members content that the regulations move to the next stage? Okay. Agenda item 12, written briefing, DARD, public consultation on proposed changes to brucellosis eradication programme, if officially brucellosis free by spring 2015. Can refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 212 to 213 and papers from the department at pages 214 to 259. Can I also refer members to the correspondence at pages 8 and 9 of the table papers, which advises that the department intends to submit the formal process to the Commission of OBF status this week. Can I advise members that the department proposes to issue a public consultation on the proposals for a revised brucellosis testing regime in the attainment of officially brucellosis-free status this year? The department is in a position that it can apply to the European Commission for officially brucellosis-free OBF status since the last confirmed case of brucellosis was February 2012. Based on the assumption the OBF will be awarded, the department intends to review that what relaxations should be made in the current brucellosis testing regime and propose to commence a consultation in March for 6 weeks. Shortened consultation is considered appropriate as there was a previous consultation in 2014 and stakeholders have been kept fully informed of what changes might be possible if OBF status is awarded. Can I seek comments from members? Can I seek agreement that the department returns to the committee with an analysis of the consultation responses? And item 13, correspondence. Confirm members the correspondence received at pages 262 to 273. Are members content to action correspondence as suggested on the index sheet at 161? Agenda item 14, any other business, or is there any other business?
Oh, Chairman.
No, you want to hold me back?
Thanks, sir. Very important issues in there.
Any other business? Agenda item 15, date and time of next meeting. The meeting of the Committee of Agriculture and Rural Development take place Tuesday 10th of March 2015 at 1:30 p.m. in room 30. I declare the meeting adjourned. Hope you remember that all night. Hope you remember this.